will update us on the situation in the eastern region of Ukraine. Шановні колеги, пан Володимир Польовий, заступник керівника інформаційно-аналітичного центру РНБО, розкаже про останні події на сході України. Прошу, пане Володимире.
Good afternoon. Our today's traditional briefing will be held by myself. There is no political context in this. Andriy Lysenko has to rest sometime. He's got a day off today. Today, the protocol was published, signed by the trilateral contact group of representatives of Ukraine, Russia, and OSCE as a result of the Minsk meeting. Its resolution part is aimed at the implementation of the peaceful plan of the President of Ukraine and the initiatives of the Russian President. According to agreements, the sides have to immediately cease fire in bilateral regime and provide for the monitoring and verification on the part of OSCE of the regime of non-use of weapons. The sides are providing for the regular monitoring on the Ukrainian-Russian border and verification on the side of OSCE with the creation of zones of security in border districts of Ukraine and Russia. Both sides took obligation to withdraw illegal armed formations and militants and mercenaries from the territory of Ukraine. Both sides took the obligation to release all the hostages and people illegally, unlawfully detained. Ukraine has already started the work on the liberation of release of hostages and people who are detained unlawfully. The Security Service of Ukraine has launched an active work on the gathering specific information of those people, also those who are missing. The Interdepartmental Center is headed by the deputy head of the chairman of the Security Service of Ukraine, Vitaly Yalovenko. Yesterday, at the border crossing point Milove, Luhansk region, the Russian side has handed over 2 fighters from the 9th Battalion of Territorial Defense. The hotline of the center's call center is working around the clock. It's 0800 501 482, also 044-235-6367, and the email address is polonhelp@wsu.gov.ua. The Ukrainian military have ceased fire, and at the same time, over the last 24 hours, there were shellings and firings at the positions of the anti-terrorist operation forces from the side of terrorists. In particular, yesterday they fired at our military positions and civil objects next to Mariupol. In general, the situation in Mariupol is calm and the situation is fully under control. The mayor, Yuri Khotlubey, conducted the sitting of the headquarters of territorial defense in Luhansk, to the northeast from settlement Severny. Convoys of armored vehicles were detected, including Russian tanks T-72BM, anti-aircraft complex batteries Strela-10, and novel Russian anti-aircraft batteries Vites. The convoy went to the south of the region. The Russian side is continuing a concentration of its armed forces on the north of the temporarily occupied Crimea, and also implements rotation of personnel and machinery. There's an activity of Russian troops on the Taganrog-Mariupol direction. The Russians are conducting engineering works of transport corridors from the territory of Russian Federation to Ukraine. There were no violations of airspace of Ukraine, as well as shellings from the Russian territory over the last 24 hours. In populated centers of Novozovsk district, the terrorists are trying to compromise the fighters of the voluntary battalion Donbass. In order to do this, they disguise themselves as Donbass fighters and engage in robbing and looting. In Donetsk region, the criminal activity of a subversive group of the so-called DNR was liquidated that acted next to the settlements of Luhansk and Alexandrivka. The special joint operation of the Security Service Ukraine and Defense Ministry was detained one of the members of the group, a citizen of Ukraine, born in 1982. He has got a certificate of a rifleman from the so-called People's Militia of DNR. Two other militants died as a result of explosion of a landmine, which was put there by terrorists themselves. Some weapons, including Kalashnikov submachine gun and grenades, were taken from them. In Mariupol, a group of militants was liquidated as a result of special operations. Security service people detained a leader and two members of this criminal group. They were collecting information about the location of Ukrainian military machinery, road checkpoints, the number of personnel, and the arms of the Ukrainian armed forces. Besides, they planned armed attacks against Ukrainian military and law enforcers, and also were preparing subversive actions on infrastructure in Mariupol and adjacent region. A Kalashnikov AK-74, 2 grenades, and 20 Molotov cocktails and 2 radio stations were taken from them. Yesterday, the president of Belarus, Alexander Lukashenko, made an official statement about the signing of the protocol on ceasefire. He approves of the ceasefire, and he says that the trilateral format, Customs Union, Ukraine, European Union, gave an opportunity to involve really interested sides into the negotiation process. He says that the contact group work should continue. Tomorrow, in the northwestern part of Black Sea, bilateral trainings of the armed forces of Ukraine and Navy of the USA Sea Breeze 2014 will start. That will last until the 10th of September. They will be working on the scenario of a international operation on the establishment and provision of the zone of security of ship going in the crisis district. The trainings will take place in the spirit of the program Partnership for Peace, so military from the other countries are invited to take part, in particular ships of Spain, Canada, Romania, Turkey, Georgia, Norway, Sweden, and France. As is planned, the land part of the training is not going to happen, same as the visits to Odessa or other ports of foreign naval ships. The general losses of Ukrainian military since the anti-terrorist operation started is 864 killed and 3,215 wounded. In the protocol, it says that the armed formations, unlawful armed formations will be withdrawn from Ukraine. Did they talk about the withdrawal of Russian troops? Officially, Russian troops are not on the territory of Ukraine, so what's written in protocol is written in the protocol. Unlawful armed formations will be withdrawn. Another question? Fighters of 12th Battalion in Luhansk addressed us. They say that they have no ammunition anymore. Do you plan to help them? First of all, we don't comment on the location and specific numbers of our units and where and what they do. But of course, especially in the conditions of ceasefire, all the ammunition supply will be restored and fighters will again perform their duties. Will there be reinforcement by sea from Odessa, let's say, to Mariupol? If you look at the map, not at our map, but at the big one where you see the Crimean Peninsula and the Straits of Kerch. You know, the straits are totally controlled by the Russians, and regrettably, the reinforcement is not so much under control of Ukrainian side, but depends on the will of Russians. No questions anymore? Oh no, there is one. What is the situation in Mariupol? They say that some peaceful citizens have died. If this is so, can't it be regarded as a breach of ceasefire? Well, you know, the firing and shelling is already the violation of ceasefire conditions. The situation is under control now. Over the last 24 hours, we didn't have any information on people from among the peaceful population killed. At the moment, there is fortification work going some 20 kilometers away from the city, next to Shirokina. And at the moment, we're not talking about the cancellation of the regime of ceasefire. Were there any losses over the last 24 hours from Ukrainian side? We're now making final count of them. Still no information. The city of Donetsk is under control of terrorists. Our military have detected an attempt to attack the Donetsk airport, which is under control of Ukrainian military, and we don't have information on shelling of Donetsk. And the last question, what about people who want to leave the towns and villages of Luhansk and Donetsk region? Can they do this? How humanitarian corridors are working? The humanitarian corridors there are 5 humanitarian corridors, and then their number grew to 7. The state emergency service is responsible for them. They are working, and people can use those corridors and leave the zone of the conflict. Do people leave Mariupol? Well, the panic that used to be there in Mariupol 3 or 4 days ago, we don't see them anymore, and in principle the city lives as usual. So if there are no questions, thank you. Volodymyr Polyovyi, Deputy Head of the Information and Analysis Center, was with us. If there will be any urgent information on the anti-terrorist operation, we will organize another briefing. Please follow our pages in social networks and our site. Thank you.